I was just a normal man. I was a nobody, living my life just like a majority of people going about with their routine, getting up early, going to work, getting stepped on all day, and then returning home late. I would arrive back home exhausted, annoyed as ever, but all those negative feelings would wash away as soon as I saw my family, my wife and daughter, with beautiful smiles spread on their faces when they saw me, filling my heart with joy. I wouldn't be anywhere else but here. But it wasn't long when it all came crashing down. When our town was hit by the Black Plague, death surrounded us rapidly. The doctors had no idea how to stop it. People locked themselves in their houses in the hopes of avoiding the plague. We did the same. We stopped going out or letting anyone else near. Even after all the effort, the plague still managed to crawl its way in, first clutching its claws around my wife, then my daughter. I just stood there helplessly, not being able to do anything except for hoping the doctor could save them. Days went on, and I would hear more and more screams of my family. They were in unbearable pain, and even after that, all I could do was just sit and pray, hoping if there was a God up there to save my family. They were all that I had, and I couldn't lose them. The doctor conducted many tests and gave them all sorts of medicines. Some only made their pain worse. Each time that happened, it would send me grabbing the doctor and yelling at him. Some medicines would ease their pain momentarily, only to return after a few hours. The day I feared the most had arrived. Death begun knocking at the door, and I lost both my wife and my daughter. The doctor's words were like a death sentence handed to me. I didn't know why I was the only one left. Why did they have to leave me? What kind of doctor was he? He couldn't even save my family, not even one of them. I felt a sharp pain in my head, followed by a sound of ringing in my ears. It felt as if my brain was going to explode. I raised both of my hands up to my head, hoping to reduce the pain, but it didn't help. Soon my vision turned black. I don't know what happened after that. I think I lost consciousness. I opened my eyes to find myself in a dark but vast space. The first thought that came to my mind was, am I dead? At that time, I had no idea what was around me. I looked around in the darkness, and I could make out two figures slowly walking towards me. The evil-looking beings were the brothers of the dead. I knew just by looking at them. I would feel the fear settling into the pits of my stomach. They started talking to me, telling me that I was the chosen one. They said that I was chosen to purify the world, to wipe out the rotten beings on this world, and to save the humans from the Black Plague, giving me a mission to fulfill, giving a purpose to my life. I couldn't die, not until I completed my mission. That was the only way to end my miserable, lonely life and reunite with my loving family in heaven. I just stared at them in fear and confusion, and I didn't know what they were talking about. Nothing they were saying made any sense. I was the chosen one? I had to save the world? A load of bull. My eyes shot open. Moving only my eyeballs, I looked around without letting my body move even an inch. I found myself standing still as my brain slowly started working again. After a while, I realized that my hands felt wet and it was hard to breathe. When my eyes and brain finally adjusted, I realized I was wearing different clothing. I was wearing a plague doctor's uniform. No, I wasn't wearing the clothes. I realized I was wearing nothing. That my skin, my flesh, the doctor's mask that I was wearing was none other than my face. I slowly looked down to my hands that felt wet and saw them covered in a scarlet red liquid. It was blood. I stumbled back, almost falling to my feet upon seeing the sight before me. The doctor's body lay in a pool of blood, motionless on the ground. I had killed the doctor. I knew I was different now. Suddenly, I remembered the strange dream about meeting the brothers of death. I remembered everything they told me, and all the puzzles fit into place. It all made sense now. I knew what I had to do now, and what I had to become. I knew what my purpose was. Even so, I knew this was all true. I refused to believe it. I refused to accept it. I tried pulling the uniform off my body, but it only caused me pain. The more I tried to pull it off, the worse the pain got. I was already in agony from the death of my family, but now I had to deal with the guilt I felt for killing the doctor. I went out in town, tried talking to people. A woman approached me and she clung onto my arm, begging me to save her daughter. But before she could say any more, or even before I could answer her, she dropped to the ground, motionless. My mind immediately screamed, "She is dead!" I shook my head, hoping that wasn't the case. People who were ignoring the scene and were passing by now had stopped to look. They were looking at me with fear, as if I was a monster. Hesitantly, I slowly bent down to check and see if the woman was breathing. My fears came true. The woman was dead. I knew for sure after checking her pulse. There was none. The people that had surrounded me seemed to have realized and now were moving away from me. They were scared of me. I was a monster to them. I tried taking a step forward, making all of them scream and run, pushing each other, trying to get far away from here, from me. A few days went by and I was already sick and tired of living. I tried to do what the brothers had told me to do. I tried helping the people. I tried treating the infected people. But whenever I touched one of them, they died on the spot. Even while walking through a crowd, I managed to kill plenty of people. More like they got themselves killed when they bumped into me. Eventually, the people started avoiding me, as if I was the Black Plague, and I didn't blame them. All I could do was kill. I realized that I had the ability that would allow me to kill anyone I touched. I had the ability to control death. I laughed to myself, recalling what the brothers had told me. I had to save people from the plague. I laughed again, this time louder, making the guy who was passing by look at me as if I was crazy, but I didn't care. I was on the verge of becoming crazy. It felt as if God was making fun of me. How in the hell am I supposed to save people when I can kill them just by touching them? I yelled, facing the sky, attracting more attention this time. I felt sick to my stomach as I remembered the time I begged the same God to save my family. Is he laughing at me right now, just like he was laughing at me when he took my family away from me? I could feel the anger boiling in me, and I put it to good use. I started killing the criminals and other messed up people that I knew of. It helped me vent my anger. As time passed by, I came to understand more and more of my abilities. I could do anything with my body and I wouldn't die. I started gathering knowledge and started experimenting on myself. I operated on myself. I could do that since I no longer felt physical pain, like I first did when I transformed into this thing. I changed my organs, replaced them multiple times. I spent years researching and experimenting. I killed countless evil people and dumped their bodies or whatever was left of them in a forest after I was done with them. I didn't age, nor did I feel sick. I was immune. I was forever lasting. I was superior to normal humankind. It was my duty now to spread my abilities, giving them to other people and giving them everlasting life without ever aging or getting sick. As years passed by, mankind advanced their technologies, growing rapidly. I went from country to country, learning about new things that would help me with my research. Leaving a trail of confusion and dead bodies behind, I had the most knowledge, more than anyone else. I was in France when I finally discovered the last missing puzzle to my research. Completing my research and allowing me to fully understand and control the abilities I had, and of course, spread it. People would finally understand there is no God up in the sky, but one right here. I will grant them longevity and a freedom from all disease. They will never have to lose a loved one, ever.
You are ugly. A phrase I had probably heard the most in my life. From the time I was young to this very day, I had been told that phrase in one way or another. The only difference over the years had been that the loud declarations from other children in the playground had turned to harsh rejections from girls in high school to hushed whispers from my coworkers. A lot happened, yet the only constant that remained was the ugliness of my being. As I ran through the empty streets of the outskirts of Seoul, I looked at my bony limbs. Those limbs, which looked no less wider than the snow below my feet, were not mine. I remember I had limbs and a body like everyone else, maybe slightly uglier. No, I remember these limbs. They looked similar to the girl I had planned to spend the week. It was going to be my first experience with a girl, even if it was a hired girl. All my life, I had failed to find a girl who could at least pretend to like me, let alone someone who would actually love me. It all started back in middle school. I was not the best-looking kid around, yet I had garnered enough courage to confess to the girl I liked. It was fine that I was rejected. What was shocking was how she rejected me. "You are ugly." 3 words and the face filled with disgust that looked down on me. I can still feel the despair I had felt that day. I kept telling myself that puberty would hit me like a truck and make me bloom, like the ugly caterpillar turning into the butterfly. However, there was no such miracle. There was only one word: ugly. I could not even confess to my high school crush. My high school romance fantasy ended the day I heard her describe me as ugly to her friends. University was no better. Everyone avoided me like the plague. So I gave up my dreams on being loved. Instead, I focused on my career. I was unable to do anything about my looks. So, like in the movies, I decided to be rich and successful. Then someone who loved my money and power would pretend to love me, lie that I was beautiful. That was just another of my fantasies. All those movies and books, they were all lies. No one loved me or pretended to love me, no matter how successful I became. Korea was the country where beauty mattered over everything else, and I was the only one who had nothing in that regard. I had tried everything. I gave up my glasses for lenses, did my best at work, and made more money than I could spend. Yet nothing brought me love. So in the end, I bit my pride, which did not matter much to begin with, and hired a girl. There were a couple setbacks there as well. Some pretty ones rejected me. Was I really ugly to the point that I could not even pay to be loved? That was when I met her. She was a little pale and bony, but she did not run away. Yet she was the only one that accepted. It was everything I had imagined. We had the best moments, enjoying dates and everything. It did not matter that I was paying her for it. The way she looked at me, it was so full of love. I remember how we headed up to the hotel room. As soon as we entered, I could not hold myself back and embraced her. That was when everything changed. She embraced me tighter with every passing moment, not letting me go even when I tried to force her. A cold feeling entered my heart as I pushed away her face that was buried in my chest, only to be greeted by the face of a monster. Before I knew it, everything had turned black. By the time I came to, I could feel a stinging pain in my head. The clock on the wall that I could read clearly before passing out was now just a blur. I rubbed my eyes, which felt heavy and bloody, as I wondered what happened and where the girl had gone. I heard the door open. I had turned around only to see the hotel owner standing there. "I heard some noise in here." He did not finish his sentence. He just stared at me, his eyes expressing a familiar expression. They were the same eyes that I had seen countless times. The eyes that said, You are ugly. I did not need the reminder. Those eyes mocked me. Why did they follow me everywhere I went? I hate them so much. I wanted him to stop looking at me, yet he continued to do so. I don't know what came over me after that. I remember screaming and lunging forward. By the time I was aware of my surroundings again, I was standing over his dead body. I had killed him. Scared, there was only one thing I could do. Run. I ran, not knowing where I was headed. Further and further until finally I reached a mountain I did not even remember the name of. I approached a small pond that had formed to look at my reflection. Pale skin, bony hands with long fingers, and white, pupilless eyes. I knew that I had turned into a monster. I stared at the creature in the reflection. Even as a monster, I could not escape my ugliness. I felt my heart ache as sobs leave my mouth, yet no tears rolled down my eyes. It is an ugly sight. An ugly monster crying alone in the mountains. I was all alone, far from everyone else. Perhaps it was better this way. Just my ugly self, alone in the mountain. However, nothing ever seemed to go the way I wanted. As I was finally coming to terms with being alone, a helicopter came, carrying armed men. They looked at me with the same eyes that I had faced so many times, expressions that reminded me of my ugliness. No, I don't want them to see me like this anymore. My body moved on its own. I remember screaming and charging at the men. I don't remember anything after that. By the time I came to, I was in some sort of facility. There were men wearing different kinds of uniforms some distance away. I know the sounds, yet I can't recall what any of those words mean anymore. Still, it did not bother me, for they were not looking at me. Time passed by. Every few days, I would be taken to a different room for experiments, a bag over my head. This way, I do not have to look at their faces being disgusted by my ugly face. And I guess the people running this place agreed to. After a few times, I realized that these experiments were just them trying to kill me. Yet, I do not hate them for it. Instead, I welcome it. For maybe in death, I will finally be free from this ugliness. However, my death never came. They have tried more times than I can count, but have not been able to harm me. My ugly, bony existence that I hate so much, the very thing that I want to escape, is the one trapping me. As another day starts with a bag over my head and a new experiment, all I can do is pray that they succeed. As they left me in a room and removed my bag, I opened my eyes. However, what I saw surprised me. It was unlike any other day. In front of me was a creature with short limbs and a disproportionately large head. As I look at its blank green eyes and face covered in red, I cannot help but think how ugly it is. For the first time in my life, I did not feel the urge to hide. For the first time, I feel like there's something uglier than me making me good looking. A strange sensation filled my heart as the realization dawned on me. Perhaps I am not the most ugly creature in existence. Maybe it is alright if I live a little longer. However, before I could dwell on this thought further, it charged at me. I could not even react as it lifted me and bent me. I felt pain covering me as I felt my neck break. A horrendous scream left my mouth as the monster repeated its movements. Was I going to die? I could not die for so long when I wanted to, yet why did I have to die right when I was thinking about living? I do not understand. As the pain covered my body, I heard some footsteps nearing me. I could tell that it was the people that were watching us. They stopped it and put a bag over my head. Was I saved? I was wrong. I felt a burning sensation as the people started pouring something over the cracks in my neck. I wailed as I tried to free myself from their grasp. Why did they have to kill me? Just let me live. I wanted to beg them, yet all that left my mouth were more monster-like screams. The burning sensation grew more painful and my screams more desperate. They used acid to prevent me from recovering. By the time I heard guns fire, I felt the world come to a standstill. There was no longer any noise, any pain, or constraints. There was only darkness.
Thank you so much for watching the video. Please subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon, and never miss an update.